Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Sergeant Jason Robillard. That's Robillard. I'm with the Vancouver Police. Today we're going to talk to you about two things. First, an update. When an arrest was made over the weekend in a violent West End home invasion. Vancouver Police have arrested 50-year-old Paul Doczi for a violent West End home invasion that sent a woman to hospital with serious injuries in the morning of June 14th. Doczi was arrested by patrol officers this past Saturday night. Crown Counsel has approved charges for aggravated assault, break-and-enter, and theft. Vancouver Police investigators are anticipating forwarding additional charges to Crown Counsel for their consideration. Doczi is in custody and his next court appearance is scheduled for June the 28th. This was a priority investigation for us here at the VPD. We're pleased we were able to get the suspect in custody fairly quickly. We're continuing to support the victim in this assault, and we wish her a very speedy recovery. I'll open up to any questions that you may have about this update.
Can you speak to her injuries?
We're not getting into that just for privacy reasons, but we are wishing her a speedy recovery. As you can imagine, this would be quite traumatic and quite an experience for her, so we wish her a speedy recovery.
Did she have to go to the hospital?
Yes, she was hospitalized.
And is this individual known to police? Any criminal history here or in other provinces?
Yeah, he does have a criminal history, and I would encourage you to maybe go check online and just get exactly what his criminal history is for. I would describe it as being quite extensive, so I'd encourage you to do that and look online.
In BC?
Other provinces as well.
And what was he doing in that area?
We're still trying to put all the pieces together, of this crime and look at motive, but we are quite happy that we've made an arrest fairly quickly in this, which gives us some time to put everything together properly, but it's still an ongoing investigation.
Did the two individuals know each other?
We're still trying to determine exactly how this happened, but we do believe this was an isolated incident.
He claims to work as a house painter. Could he have gained access that way?
No, I don't believe that was the case.
That he's not a painter or that he doesn't have access to the place?
The access was obtained not by the means that you're suggesting, but it is still an ongoing investigation.
Do you know what his occupation is?
We're not releasing that right now.
Where is he from?
Right now, he's from the Vancouver area, residing in Vancouver.
Did he move here from another province? Do you know? And if so,
Perhaps. I honestly don't have that information.
Is there any surveillance video around that you guys are looking at?
Definitely video evidence played a part in this investigation.
And sorry, could you remind me where exactly this happened again?
This was it. I'll just look at my notes here. We were in as a West End home invasion. This was an apartment on Beach Avenue near Jervis Street.
How long it takes the police to successfully arrest the suspect?
I'm sorry?
How long it takes the police to successfully arrest the suspect?
In this particular case or in general? The offense happened on June the 14th. We were able to make the arrest Saturday evening, so that was quite quickly.
Was it through any information from the public or from anyone?
I would say this is a coordinated effort. And the arrest was made by Heads Up Patrol Officer.
Where was the arrest made? Was it close in relation to where the incident happened?
The arrest was made here in Vancouver.
And what time did this happen? I know it says morning, but do we have a...
No, I believe we're releasing the exact time of it, but we're saying it happened around 6:30 a.m.
And is there anything else you guys are looking for from the public or?
At this time, no. We're just trying to put everything together, trying to put together a package for this, but the accused remains in custody.
Could you talk about, was she leaving her house? Was she at home hanging out? What?
What we're going to really, how I can word this is that she was at home. She was by herself when this happened.
And does the individual live nearby? The man charged?
We're not releasing that information at this time.
Does the location of the suite have anything to do with this? And the West End's got a lot of ground level suites.
Perhaps it could have something to do with it, but we are still trying to put it all together. Okay, thank you. I'll move on now to an arrest that was made Sunday night. This was just after 10 p.m. where Vancouver police officers responded to a stabbing. This was near a bus stop outside a McDonald's restaurant at East Hastings and Cassiar Street. Our officers located the suspect at that location, who was later identified as a 22-year-old Surrey man. He was near the bus stop, and the officers attempted to arrest the suspect at gunpoint. The suspect was uncooperative, and our officers were able to safely arrest him using a taser and by pulling him to the ground. A knife was recovered at the scene, and the suspect was treated at hospital for a cut to his hand, which officers believe may have occurred by himself, due to his own self, and also happened prior to the arrival of the officers. The victim, a 22-year-old Langley man, was transported to hospital with non-life-threatening stab wounds. The suspect remains in custody, and officers are recommending a charge for assault with a weapon. We just checked online, and the suspect has been identified and charged with one count of assault with a weapon, is identified as Janny Wan, that's W-A-N. He's 22 years old from Surrey. He has been charged and attended court this morning at 9:30. The victim and the suspect in this case did not appear to know each other prior to this incident, and they were amongst a crowd of people who had recently exited a nearby music festival. The incident, from what we gathered, started off as a verbal dispute and is believed to be isolated. Any questions that you may have?
Can you give that spelling again, please, if that's okay?
Sure, the surname is W-A-N, given one of Jany, J-A-N-Y.
And he's 22?
22 years old.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
What do you say to those that question the actions of police? I mean, the person actually posted the video, was questioning it, maybe saying if the suspect maybe had a different color of skin, things would have been different. The deploying of the taser, perhaps, was that necessary? So overall, what's the VPD's take on why that action was taken the way it was?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that sometimes force doesn't look pretty. And in this particular case, what people are referring to is a very small part of a bigger incident. There was a lot of things that played out prior to this, and in this case, it is alleged that the suspect that was being arrested on film and on several cell phone cameras had allegedly stabbed somebody else during a recent altercation, and from our officers' knowledge, may or may not still be in possession of a weapon, of a knife. The officers started out by giving the suspect verbal commands and asking him to surrender so they could arrest him, and they had their guns out at that time. He was uncooperative. The officers there had to act quickly. It was a very dynamic situation. They did deploy a taser, and they did pull him to the ground by his backpack and were able to safely arrest him. And this situation, when you look at the amount of bystanders that were around him, the officers had to act very quickly for the safety of the other bystanders, for the safety of the officers, and that's what people saw here. This individual has been charged with assault with a weapon, and he did stab somebody recently just prior to this. So that's what the officers were dealing with.
So race played no role?
Race played no role in this. What this was a violent offender. Regardless of their race, the officers were effecting an arrest, trying to bring a dangerous offender into custody.
How does the VPD feel about incidents like that? I mean, officers arriving to a hectic situation, huge crowd. There's obviously, a lot of panic going on there, and there's a lot of people filming on their phones, and then this video is posted, and then everyone reacts about it.
I think, in today's day and age, we expect that. There are people with cell phone videos out. A lot of times these do help us in our investigation. Our advice is to not rush to conclusions, not rush to judgment. Share the video, even with us, because it could be very helpful in investigation. It could help us later on down the road. But, this isn't new to us. It can be frustrating at times, and I think it's very helpful when you get the full story as to exactly what happened. what our officers were doing. And they did have to act quickly in this particular case. And this was a violent situation with a crowd, very dynamic, and a very fluid situation. So the officers arrested this person, and he remains in custody.
Could this be a good example of officers maybe benefiting from wearing body cameras?
It's hard to say if that would play a role or not. I don't want to get into the debate of body cameras. There's obviously a lot of pros and cons with it. But I mean, right now, the biggest takeaway from this is that there's a lot more context involved than a small couple-second clip of an arrest. There's usually something prior and something afterwards. You know, we're happy to have that footage come forward, which generally helps us out. We're just asking people not to rush to conclusions and try and get the full story.
The deploying of the taser, is that common practice nowadays? A technique that's used just before deciding to take someone down? I understand every case is different, but is it still happening quite often?
Well, there's a lot of factors. Like I said, it's very fluid, and it's up to each individual officer what level of force they use. This is a good example of starting out high, where they had their guns drawn and they're using verbal commands, where they had to deploy a taser and they went down a step or up a step. And then they used empty hand technique where they pulled the suspect with his backpack to the ground. So a combination of force was used, and officers were able to quickly detain the suspect. You know, in this situation, it would be very unsafe and very volatile if the suspect were to get away. They had to contain him. There's a crowd of people there. He allegedly just stabbed somebody else during a fight, could still have that knife in his possession. So our officers have to act quickly and detain this suspect. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.